Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you for being here. I hope you stick around till the end because this is my first video, so bear with me. I'm going to get into how to mix vocals, and what I'm going to do is just show you the clip now. So here we go.
It was an ocean too big for me. It was a mountain I couldn't.
Okay, so that's what we're dealing with here. So first of all, when you mix vocals, you want to start with the EQ. Now, something I've been told that you need to do is actually get a linear phase EQ to reduce any noise cancellation, particularly at the low end. So when we do this, we want to just cut out any rumble at the low end of the mix here, the low end EQ. Okay, so probably about 200 Hertz, that should do it. Okay, now let's listen again.
It was an ocean too big for me.
Okay, so you can hear there's a little difference there. Something you can also do is just add a little peak around the low mids, so you can compensate by raising up the decibel level in around 300 to 500 Hertz. Okay, next thing you can do is have a look to see if there's any harsh sounds going on. Usually it's around sort of 2000 to 8000. Okay, so let's listen again, and I'm just going to scan.
It was an ocean too big for me. It was a mountain I couldn't climb. It was a chasm.
Okay, so I found something there. So there's a little whistle sound going on there. So what I'm going to do is just drop that by a few dB. Okay. There we go. Listen again.
It was an ocean too big for me.
I'm going to turn it off.
It was a mountain I couldn't climb. It was a chasm I couldn't cross.
Another thing you want to think about is how to brighten the vocals, particularly when you have other instruments in there. Perhaps you have a bass guitar, a piano. You want to make sure the vocals are clearest in the mix because they're probably the most important part of the song. Okay, so what I'm going to do is raise the decibel level around 4000 to 6000. Okay, just like that. You can also do the same a bit lower, around 1000 to 2000. Okay. Another thing you want to look for is any nasally sounds. Sometimes that can be a bit off-putting in a mix, so if you want it to sound really professional, you can drop that around here. Okay, around 3000, 4000. Okay, just a little bit, just cut it out a little bit there. Okay.
It was an ocean too big for me.
For example, if I raise this up right here, you're going to hear the difference.
It was an ocean too big for me. It was a mountain I couldn't climb. It was a cat.
Okay, you can hear that. Okay, so I'm going to just bring this high shelf up to about 4000 Hertz. Okay, there we go, and just give it a couple of dB. There we are. All right.
It was an
It just helps keep some of that breathiness in the vocals. It's really nice when you've got a bit of room up here as well. Okay, so that is our EQ mix done. Next thing you want to think about is your compressor. Okay, you could start with just a simple compressor from the Logic Pro plugin here. So we've got this Platinum Digital one. Let's play it through here.
It was an ocean too big for me. It was a mountain.
Okay, and I may want to just boost the input level a little bit so I've got more to work with.
It was an ocean too big for me. It was a mountain I couldn't climb.
Okay, that gives me more to work with. So I'm going to raise the threshold probably until about minus 15 decibels. Okay, and so until about minus 15 decibels, and then raise the ratio up to about 4.4. Okay, I want a nice smooth curve there. Okay, so I'm going to boost the knee right up to 1. Because with vocals, you want it to maintain its natural sound, okay? You don't want to do things overly harsh. For example, if I reduce it right to here, it's going to squash the vocals a lot. If I'm too slack on the ratio, it's not going to make any difference to the mix. So I just want to boost the ratio to about 4 there, okay? And then we want to take the attack down so it's quite quick, and probably keep it around 50 milliseconds on the release. So let's have a listen.
It was an ocean too big for me. It was a mountain.
Okay, now with it off.
It was an ocean too big for me. It was a mountain I couldn't climb. It was a chasm I couldn't cross.
Okay, so that sounds pretty good to me. It's just helped us gain a bit more in the quieter parts of the vocals, and help us reduce some of those higher parts in the vocals as well, the loudest parts. Okay, so now what you might want to do is select part of the song where it's the most dynamic in the volume range. Okay, so we've got somewhere very quiet here and a chorus.
My breathless, aching bones and broke, my heart alive within your grace.
Okay, something now you want to do is get yourself a noise gate. Noise gates are very useful, particularly for vocals, because if you've got any background clicks or pops, sometimes that just happens when you're recording. You might have some background sounds if you're recording audio, okay, and you want to cut those out and limit how much they interfere with the song. So let's have a listen with the noise gate on.
My breathless, aching bones and broke, my heart alive within your grace.
See, it's not good there, is it? If you listen closely, you can hear it's cut out a bit of that last S sound that's quite crucial to the vocals, okay?
Within your grace.
It's gone like that. So you want to reduce the threshold down to about maybe 50. Let's have a listen. It's still got a little bit there, so you can increase the release time as well, maybe to 150 milliseconds, maybe boost the hold a little bit. Also, you can try reducing the hyposteresis as well. It's basically the speed of the response of the noise gate. Okay, so when you reduce it, it'll sound a bit smoother.
For the veil now, I'm entering within your grace.
There you go. See, that's much nicer, much smoother. There we go. Okay, so that's something that can be quite helpful if you've got any low bits you just don't want to go through and use the volume automation. You can do it manually like this, cut out any of those blank areas, but it just takes a lot of time. So you can use a noise gate to do most of that for you, and then just listen again and see if there's anything else that you need to cut out. Okay, so we can do something like this. All right. Something else to watch out for is where you're cutting exactly. So maybe you want to make sure it's a nice smooth transition in to the vocals, so you can actually bend the automation with the automation curve tool there. Okay.
It was an ocean.
Like that. Okay. The next thing you want to think about is a DeEsser. This will remove any harsh sounds like P's, T's, and S's in the mix. So you can click the filter button and just have a listen to what the DeEsser is actually hearing, okay, and responding to.
It was a mountain I couldn't climb. It was a chasm I couldn't cross.
Okay, so it's responding to those very harsh sounds like S and the T sound, okay? They tend to be in the higher frequency range. So what you can do here is adjust where the DeEsser is detecting, what frequencies it's looking for, okay?
Mountain I couldn't climb. It was a chasm I couldn't cross. But that's when someone...
So we've got some sounds there that we may want to reduce a little bit. So we'll keep the reduction maybe around 7.5 dB. Okay. I've got the filter set to like a high pass filter there. Or a low, sorry, I've got it's set to a low pass filter there. So it's going to reduce everything from 12k hertz down.
But that's when someone...
Okay, now let's listen to it as it would be with the DeEsser.
I couldn't climb. It was a chasm I couldn't cross. But that...
Again, when we listen to that DeEsser, the vocals already sound quite muffly, like you can't really hear any definition in the high range, okay? So what you might want to do is reduce the reduction rate, okay?
I couldn't cross, but that's when someone I didn't know.
See, that sounds much better already. If it's right down here it's going to sound very off.
It was a chasm I couldn't cross, but I couldn't cross. I couldn't cross.
Okay, so that's much better already. If we just keep it around 5 dB, maybe a little bit less. Okay, next thing you want to do is to add a little bit of color to the vocals. Okay, something I love to use is in the multi-effects, the fat FX. Okay, so I open this up. There's lots of things you can do in this plugin, which I really love. It's great for bass, it's great for guitar, it's great for vocals, pretty much anything and everything I use it on. Okay, and especially for vocals, because you can add a little bit of distortion, or soft saturation, which is going to add some color in there, and I can choose how it's going to come in, what level, what frequencies I'm going to cover with the soft saturation. I can adjust the mix, so I reduce how much is actually coming through this plugin. Okay.
I couldn't climb. It was a chasm I couldn't cross, but that's when someone...
See, notice how the plugin has reduced the volume level, the gain level a little bit, so we can boost it in the output just to compensate here.
I didn't know I couldn't cross, but that's when someone I didn't know.
Okay, and we can boost the mix a little.
I couldn't cross, but that's when someone I didn't know. You step down into my darkness and pulled me from the ashes. You raised me up out of my darkness.
Okay, you can also add an exciter in there as well, just to add a little bit in the higher end. Okay.
You step down into my darkness and pulled me from the ashes. You raised me up out of the grave. You breathe life into my breathless, aching bones and brought my heart alive with you. Step down into my darkness and pulled me from the ashes. You raised me up out of the grave. You breathe life into my breathless, aching bones and brought my heart alive with you. Step.
You can hear the difference. It's just added a little bit of color in there. Okay, now the next thing you could do is add some reverb. Okay, in fact, what I'm going to do is open up a bus. Okay, so let's go to bus 1. Let's already put a little bit of input in there so we can hear it, and then I'm going to add my reverb in here. I like the Space Designer plugin. Okay, there's lots we can do with this one. And I'm just going to play it and see what we've got.
You step down into my darkness and pulled me from the ashes.
So I like how it sounds, but maybe I need to change the EQ level a little bit in the reverb itself, so it's not masking any of the original vocal sound. It tends to be around the 1000 to 4000 range. Okay, so we want to dip it a little bit just so it's not interfering with the vocals there, because when we mix it with other instruments, we want to allow the vocals as much room as possible to come through. So it's very clear, it's easy to understand, it's easy to hear everything there. Okay, so you want to reduce the reverb in that area. You may also want to reduce some of the low end as well, because again you're going to have bass guitar, drums, kick, and otherwise it's going to make the rest of the mix sound quite muddy in the low end. So you can just cut some of that problem out by just shaping the EQ in your vocal reverb. Okay? Now let's have another listen to it.
You step down into my darkness and pulled me from the ashes.
Okay, not bad. Alright, so we can adjust the volume envelope as well. I might want to extend that volume a little bit longer, so I'm going to raise it up here. Okay. But I'm going to shorten it as well, just maybe a little bit, because when the next line comes in, I don't want the reverb lingering on other lines, if that makes sense. I hope I'm making sense.
You step down into my darkness.
Can you hear the difference? It just sounds a little bit cleaner, because you're not leaving all that long time of reverb to just muddy everything up. Okay.
You step down into my darkness and pulled me from the ashes. You raised me up out of the grave. You breathe life into my breathless, aching bones and broke my heart.
Much cleaner, okay? So another trick you can do is reduce the low end spread as well, because particularly with low frequencies, it's best to keep them central, okay? Because again, you may have other, it's all about headroom, okay? It's all about creating space for other instruments and making sure that it's clean, it's tight, and everything can be heard clearly, okay? You can keep the high spread up. I'm just going to reduce, I'm going to raise the X over to about 2000 Hertz, okay?
You step down into my darkness and pulled me from the ashes.
Okay. Again, density is another thing you can change here. So you can change how many reverberations are being made. So maybe you reduce that a little bit. So it's not so intense, but it's something there, and you can hear the reverb with a bit more clarity.
You step down into my darkness and pulled me from the ashes.
Better? Okay. Now something you can add is a sidechain compressor. Okay, so we're going to add that in dynamics. Okay. You want to sidechain it to the original audio. So the face-to-face vocals track, which is here, and then this compressor, which is on bus 1, I've sidechained it to that original audio track. Okay.
You step down into my darkness.
So what it's doing there is it's actually reducing the volume when the vocalist starts to sing, okay? and then when the vocals stop, the reverb will have more room afterwards. So again, it's creating room for the vocals in the mix and the reverb to find its own place. Okay?
You step down into my darkness and pulled me from the ashes. You raised me up out of the grave. You breathe life into my breathless.
Okay. Right. I'm going to add another bus, and this time I'm going to add some delay. Delay is very cool. Okay. Tape delay. Again, it depends on the character of the song, but you can select to keep it in tempo with the rest of the song. If it's got a beat, like a 4/4 or a 3/4, you may want to decide for yourself how it's going to repeat. Okay?
You step down into my darkness and pulled me from the ashes. You raised me up out of the grave. You breathe life into my breathless, aching bones and brought my heart alive with you. Step down into my darkness and pulled me from the ashes. You raised me up out of the grave. You breathe.
Okay, we can increase the spread a little bit.
You stepped down into my darkness and pulled me from the.
Okay, maybe reduce the high cut, about 4,000. Okay, and low a bit.
You stepped down into my darkness and pulled me from the ashes. You raised me up out of the grave. You breathe.
Okay, something I like to add as a little feature is a spreader. Okay, I like a spreader here. Where is it? Modulation. A spreader for the tape delay.
You stepped down into my darkness and pulled me from the ashes. You raised me up out of the grave. You breathe life into my breathless, aching bones and brought my heart alive with you. Step down into my darkness and pulled me from the ashes. You raised me up out of the.
Okay, so I'm just going to reduce the bus level, the bus input gain down a little bit.
You step down into my darkness.
And I'm going to repeat the same thing I did with the compressor on bus 1 as a side chain and put one on bus 2. Okay, so it's doing the same thing, just creating a bit more room for the delay and for the main vocals to pop through. Okay, there we are.
You step down into my darkness and pulled me from.
So I just copied and pasted into the plugin itself. There we go. Now let's go back and listen to how we've come on since the beginning. So I'm just going to turn all of these off, and now you're going to listen to what it sounded like before and after.
You step down into my darkness and pulled me from the ashes. You raised me up out of the grave. Aching bones and brought my heart alive with.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for staying, and yeah, let me know how you get on with your vocals. Please send me what you're working on. I would love to hear from you and your projects, and let me know how I can be better as well to help you, what videos you want to see next. Okay, so I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.